I'm about to give you a short video in how to make a loaf of bread very simply with the equipment you've been given, and I'll use my equipment obviously. This is very quick. All you need to do, all the ingredients you need are here. So 350 millilitres of warm water, 2 sachets of fast action dried yeast, a bowl and a measuring scales, some strong white bread flour, some salt and some sugar. So we'll just mix all these things together first. Very easy. Just bosh all the yeast in the water, or some of it, and mix it up so this gets the yeast working quicker, so it's all producing by the time you add it to the flour. Now overall this process takes about 4 hours from now when we start to add the ingredients together to when you have a cool loaf that you can sit down and eat. It may take you a couple of tries with your oven and your flour and your yeast, etc., but generally I've been mucking about with this recipe for about 3 months now, and it produces a very satisfactory loaf. So that's the yeast, that's all mixed in. So we'll get some flour. You need 500 grams rather of flour. So we'll just stick some flour in there. Too much there, so we'll take some back out. That should be about right. And then I'm obviously doing this one-handed, so this will be much simpler for you. You need a teaspoon of salt and a tablespoon and a bit of sugar for luck. Okay, so that's all the dry goods in there. And you can start to kind of whiz those together with a fork. You finish with your scales now and get rid of those. So now all you do is you're looking for a mass of bread and flour that you can work with your hands without getting too messy in my method. So pour in some of the water with the yeast in, and then just work the flour into the middle, and you'll see that little bits of kind of shreds of flour, shreds of bread flour start to form. When you've got that, you should get a big lump on the fork as well. So just pour some more in. That's fine. Okay, and a bit more until it's all gone. Obviously I'm working one-handed, but you see this kind of mass that's forming on the fork. That is what you want, and eventually you should be able to work all of the flour, or a lot of the flour in. You should eventually have a fairly dry mass of bready shreds that you can knock out onto your counter or board or whatever it is you want to use. So if you just stick a little bit of flour down on your board, or on your tabletop if you want to do it like we do it, and then just simply turn it out like that and scrape all the bits out of the bowl so you've got as much of the mixture as you can get. And that's it. And now it's time for kneading. So you should now have all of your ingredients mixed in and all of your bread shreds on the deck ready to be mixed up and kneaded together. Okay, so having knocked out the mixture onto the table, I've taken a quick opportunity to clean the bowl, which we'll be using again for the rise in 10 minutes. And but this is also going to need to be oiled, so I've taken the opportunity to clean the bowl of all the mixture and put some olive oil in it, and then just wipe that around so that there's a bit of a coating, and then when you want to take your yeast out, your bread out rather, it won't all stick. Okay, so that's there ready to go. Okay, so this is the kneading stage. Now, first of all, the bread is still pretty wet at the moment because you've only just put the water in, so it's still a bit of a sticky mass. So first thing to do is just to kind of mix it all together with your hands. So this isn't so much kneading, it's just getting one mass rather than lots of shreds. And just try and gather it all in, and it should be a fairly sloppy consistency at the moment, but as you knead it, that should change and it should start to form one ball. And as I was saying earlier, while we're mixing, I'll explain kneading in a minute, but this the loaf of bread takes about 4 hours. It takes you about 20 minutes to sort it all out initially, and then 2 hours for the first rise, and then 10 minutes to knock it back after the first rise, so that's 2.5 hours, and then about 40 minutes in the oven, and then another 45 minutes or so to cool, which gets you up to about 4 hours or so. Obviously you can eat it as soon as you can tolerate, but yeah, so you get a nice loaf of bread out of that. As I say, I've been mucking about this recipe for quite a while, so I think it works very well, but you can add more or less salt, different, we use Sainsbury's yeast because that's where we shop, but if you use live yeast, that can make a difference flavour wise. If you leave it to rise for longer, you can use different temperature water, you can use cold water, you can leave it to rise for longer, you can apply a sesame oil mixture to the top of the bread, which would leave you with something akin to tiger bread, apparently, not that I've tried it. But yeah, so there's all sorts of things you can do. Now if this is getting too sticky as you're mixing it, you can always add a bit more flour. But we'll do some kneading now. So the principle of the kneading is just to stretch I believe it's the gluten fibres within the bread. So the way you do that is you grab one side and you push with the other side, and then you roll it back, turn it around, and repeat. So it's grab, push, roll, turn, grab, push, roll, turn, grab, push, roll, turn. Now obviously this is quite a sticky dough at the moment, so I'm going to put some more flour on it. But that is basically kneading, and you need to do that for about 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes you should have a nice ball of dough. So yeah, basically it's grab, push, roll, turn, grab, push, roll, turn, grab, push, roll, turn, and this will stretch all of the fibres out, and it should get the yeast working as well from the temperature of your hands. So, and this will also give you the nice consistency that you want, nice smooth, springy, elasticy, all of these words that the guys on TV use about bread when it's done right, but this seems to work for me. You can get up a nice rhythm going. We'll get your heart beating. Nice little bit of mild exercise. So yeah, grab, push, roll, turn, grab, push, roll, turn, grab, push, roll, turn. And just keep doing that for 10 minutes basically. You should see the consistency start to change in your hands. Now as you go, you'll see that there's bits of bread all over your hands, so you can try and get those off, because otherwise that's just a waste of good bread, isn't it? So try and get all that stuff off. Obviously wash your hands first, because this is great at getting all that bathroom dirt from under your nails where you've been retiling the bathroom before you start making your bread, which I haven't, obviously. But yeah, try and get as much of that off as you can, and then just keep kneading. 10 minutes, 10 whole minutes. And this is one of those rubbish in, rubbish out type stuff. Same as the computer. If you don't bother to do this properly, then the bread will be lesser for it. So it's worth making the effort. And it wakes you up in the morning as well. So just try and get into a rhythm, get faster and faster. And I'll see you in 7 minutes or so. Okay, so I've been kneading this for about another 5-6 minutes since I left you, and as you can see, this ball of dough is now quite springy and nice. It has the consistency of fresh Play-Doh, and you can poke it. It's quite elasticy. It feels quite uniform in your hand. So that is done. All we're going to do now is roll it into a nice kind of bun looking shape, and then we're going to stick it in to rise for 2 hours in a bowl covered in cling film. You don't have to put it in don't need to put it in anywhere warm or anything like that. Just going to make it into a bowl, drop it into the bowl like that, and then turn it over so it gets a nice covering of oil. And that's it. Leave it in the bowl for 2 hours, and then we'll see where we are. Okay, so this is about 15 minutes in, and you can see all the lumps and bumps forming as the air pockets start to push the dough out into weird shapes. And that's just sat on the side, it's not in the airing cupboard or anything like that, so yeah, just needs to sit somewhere for 2 hours. Okay, so after 2 hours, the dough has risen somewhat, and now looks like this. Okay, so the dough's risen quite a lot. It's full of air now, as you can see. We need to get all the little air bubbles out of it. So we just need to get it out the bowl. Again, get all the little shreds out if you can, because that's all good bread. And this is called knocking back. All we're going to do is beat the dough to get the air to go into little small bubbles instead of them in great big ones. Otherwise you'll end up with a deformed loaf. So don't need your bowl anymore. Should also put the oven on. Okay, so this is our dough that's risen. It's quite airy and bubbly now. I've put the oven on at gas mark 6. We're going to knock this back, which just means knocking the air out of it. We only need to do that for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to shape the dough onto a tray and leave it for 20 minutes just to have a second rise. Now as you're basically squeezing this, you can hear the little bubbles escaping. We've developed a karate chop method of doing this, just to get the air either out or squeezed down. This is obviously where you shape the dough as well, so if you want like a long thin dough or a round bread, then this is where you should be heading for that general shape. So I'm going to do like a bloomer type of loaf now. So I'm going to try and get it more long than round. But basically get it in the, so I want kind of a sausage shape, get it in the kind of shape you want there, and then what you need to do is tuck, which is like that kind of motion. You need to tuck all the dough underneath. So on the TV they kind of grab a bit and pull it over, so you end up with a nice consistent upper edge, or upper surface rather. I don't know whether you really need to do this, but it doesn't hurt. And then you end up with kind of a seam that you can see there, and then when you turn it over you just do the tucking thing we just mentioned, and then you should have a kind of nice consistent shape, and then you want to transfer it onto whatever it is you're going to cook it on, which in this case is a baking tray. And again, just tuck it in, and that's your final shape then. So just leave that on top of the oven for 20 minutes. So that's our bread. It's all kind of tucked under, looks very nice. And we're just going to leave that for 20 minutes to have a second rise, and then we'll stick it in the oven, which has already been on for 20 minutes by then at gas mark 6. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes and the bread has risen slightly, and we're now going to put it in the oven in a sec. All we need to do first is just slit it. So we're just going to get a very sharp knife and just drag it over the top of the loaf a few times in a decorative manner, and that will allow the loaf to open up a bit. The oven is at about 180 degrees, so the only other thing we're going to do is put some water. I've just got a cup of water here. I'm just going to chuck that into the bottom of the oven like that, so you get some good steam going. I'm going to fish out this temperature sensor and stick the loaf in. So just stick it in to the bottom of the oven for 35 minutes, and we'll come back to you at that point. Okay, so the bread is now done. It's been about 35 minutes at 180. I took it out and just took the paper off the bottom and then turned it over and turned the oven off and put it back in for another 5 minutes, and now you can hear that that's nicely done, looking like a good loaf, and that is how you bake bread. So we'll see you in a minute when we cut it, but if you wait about 30 minutes now, that should have cooled down enough to eat. 45 definitely, but 30 is the minimum. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, so this is the loaf of bread. We're just about to sit down to eat it. As you can see, it's very nice. It sounds hollow underneath. And we'll cut into it and see how it looks. Nice. And there you go, a lovely loaf. So happy birthday. I hope you enjoy your new bread making skills. It's very easy, and we'll look forward to sampling your wares in future. See you soon.